And it looks like we're back. Everything seems to be doing the right thing. Let me get the lower third up so we can see all you lovely people chatting. And it's very exciting. So yeah, we are good to go here tonight, surprisingly on time, on schedule. I think everything's all plugged in and prepped the way I like it. It's the way I like it. Get that a little better set up. Hey, Spin to Win, good to see ya. One sec while I pull up the news here. Have that ready. Got a fair amount of news this week, which is kind of nice. Had to cut it down, pull out some of the stuff that just wasn't exactly, relevant. Wasn't, it's kind of anime related, but not like anime focused. A lot of that stuff, but it's always nice to see new anime stuff. What you been up to this week, Spin? And anyone else out there? Hope you're all doing well. Let me just go ahead and dig into the news, I think. Oops. As I stumble over everything. All right. Yeah, I think it's time for the news. What do you think? Get the news done? Yeah? Let's get into the news. Transition over to the news. Get it ready to go. A lot of video to show here today as well, which is cool. Let's get this started. See how it goes. Welcome back to the latest anime news for the week ending May 11th, 2018. I love starting the news with new anime announcements, and this week we've got two, kinda three, actually. First in line is a novel called I Fall in Love with You Through a Robot. Yes, that's actually the title. It's set in the year 2060 and involves a protagonist combating some terrorist event while protecting some young woman with whom he's fallen in love. Sound interesting? Well, here's the odd bit. Last year, the anime studio A1 Pictures, they made Sword Art Online among lots and lots of other stuff. They produced a nearly 2-minute anime trailer for this book. So, here's the cover, but let's go ahead and just watch some of that trailer now. Why not?
一番古い記憶はいつになるだろう。僕は君をずっと見つめていた。
次は俺がもっといいのを作ってやるよ。
ありがとう。自分が冴えない男だというのは分かってる。彼女が好きなのは僕じゃない。ただサキと一緒にいたい。
そんなこと気にすんなよ。幼馴染なんだから。
都内で大規模な爆破。
Looks kind of like a Mamoru Hosoda film, don't it? Now, there's no indication yet that the anime film will look like that. We don't know who's making it, or the character designers, or anything, but I don't know about you, I'm looking forward to it. Looks like more of a romance than anything else. Another book is getting an anime film, actually, but, see here, this time it's a classic Japanese children's book from 1985 called Our 7-Day War. Get this, all the middle school boys in one school disappear one day. And the adults find out that they've holed themselves up in a warehouse to build a tank, and start a revolution against the strict adults in their lives. Sounds like a kind of Goonies-like story, 80s kid adventure. And fortunately, there was a live-action film made in 1988, and here is the trailer for that.
30センチプラスマイナス2センチ
オンザ眉毛
レボリューションノートに書き留めた
本気でエスケープしたのかな。でもどこにふけたんだろう。
遮る壁
8人の生徒が同時にいなくなったんですよ。親に黙って外泊するなんて。
早く扉を開けてください。
ヤシラ、メイク
分を見つけたいだけ誰かを憎むのではなく思いを伝えたいだけ Seven days を
彼ら武力革命を企んでるんだ戦争ですこれは国家の一大です
譲れない Seven days を get gracefully ねえこの戦車名前つけてあげない
So again, just to be clear, that is the live action version made in the 80s. There's an anime film of that coming up, hopefully like soon, but we'll see how that goes. Who knows? But that's not the only story. Let's see here what we got here. Ah, yeah, not the only announcement. We already knew that a new season of Free Iwatobi Swim Club will air this summer, but now we have a 1-minute trailer, and it's surprisingly emotional. Get ready for the feels? Let's do this. I think you get the idea. Okay, that's all the new anime announcements. Let's talk about some current anime. The new season of Lupin III is turning heads for its modern take on the classic thief character, and the staff has announced a surprise. They're adding 7 new script writers to the show. That's 7. Each one will write a different episode featuring their own unique take on Lupin. Among them are Keiichi Sigsawa, the original author of Kino's Journey, and Kazushige Nojima, writer on Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. This should be interesting. Man. Also, good news for fans worried that online streaming will eat up all anime series. Sentai Filmworks has announced that they've licensed Scum's Wish, which came out on Amazon Prime last year. And not only that, they'll also produce an English dub. Pretty sweet. Scum's Wish is about 2 high schoolers who are in a relationship but actually have feelings for other people. So sort of a romantic tragedy, it sounds like. Haven't actually seen it myself, but eh. Finally, a few anime-related news briefs. The Tiger and Bunny Hollywood live-action adaptation, calm down, is moving forward, but it's just moving forward with 2 new production companies joining the fray, including well-known genre writer and producer Akiva Goldsman. Worked on a lot of things like A Beautiful Mind and a lot of sci-fi and fantasy sort of genre stuff. Meanwhile, Visual Arts, creators of such massively influential visual novels like Canon and Air and Clannad, recently posted a survey on their website asking if fans are interested in English translations of their games. Will this mean more official English versions of visual novels like Air and Canon? And Canon, or whatever you want to pronounce it. Let's hope. Okay. So that's that. That's that news. I have watched like an episode of Free and enjoyed what I watched, but you know, didn't dive much deeper into it. Dive. Haha. See what I did? Anyway. All right. So there's that. Let me then transition a bit. I'm going to wait a little bit to get a few more folks before I do the review, because the review is going to be kind of special tonight. I think we'll do a dramatic reading. Why not? The dramatic reading should be pretty quick. The question, though, is who should do the dramatic reading? So, we've done... Let's see, we can't do them. Who's in here? Yep, we have him. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to go with the beaver. Although he's more of a pervert, not so much of a. This is all about piracy. I think I'll do the crow for this one. Yeah, I think the crow will make sense. You kind of can't see anything with the crow, but back. Yep, that is the thing. Yep, I like that. All right. So, I need to introduce this, though, so let me do that. Hey, Master Chief. Hey, Fisher. Good to see you. Just about to start the dramatic reading with an introduction. Welcome, Envelope Antelope. So, I will do that, and then I'll get into the dramatic reading. This is a dramatic reading of an anime post from 20 years ago about Sonmei, and I figured that required an introduction. Sonmei was a company that imported bootleg Taiwanese anime soundtracks back in the 90s. So basically they would duplicate legitimate Japanese soundtracks and sell them for cheap through Taiwanese channels. The kind of thing that was technically legal in Taiwan, but almost certainly not legal to buy in other countries because of the whole piracy thing. So there was a lot of debate amongst anime fans as to the legitimacy of that. It was certainly bootlegging, but somebody had something to say. So let's do that. Just needed to have that introduction so folks knew what it was, and then let's do this. Okay. It's going to be a little hard for me to read that from... I think I can do that. Maybe. Oh, you know what I can do? 1 second. Pull it up over here. That's what I'll do. Give me 30 seconds to pull that up over here. 1 sec. Almost got it. Terminology. Greetings. I don't. Oh, okay. I will need to pull it up over here, I guess. Sorry, I thought I had it right there. Nope, but I do have it there. Okay, good. So I can read that from there. All right. I think we got it. Let me transition. Sonmei CDs are moral to buy. From Cat B, May 8th, 1998. I realized that since the Japanese government regulates CD prices, that it would be moral to go underground and rip them off by buying Sonmei CDs. Sonmeis. I mean, $30 for a CD is just plain unreasonable. What does the Japanese government need to regulate CD prices for? Sounds like something Fidel Castro would do. Who wants to support evil communists when you can support pirates who will not trying to do anything about the situation, as their profits would be lost, are inadvertently affecting the Japanese market? Maybe we can get the Japanese to stop using price fixing to artificially inflate the price of their CDs. Huh. The Japanese government doesn't fix CD prices, by the way. Short but sweet. Exactly. Antelope. The worst thing about anime is all the evil communists. I mean, gosh. So actually, I was in reading this week for the dramatic reading. It's amazing how many people are just very adamant about paying for the thing, right? Like, find a way to pay for anime. Maybe you can't pay for it right up front. Maybe you can't buy, the really expensive version. maybe you watch a fan sub and then when it comes out legitimately you buy it, but do something. I like that. Communists versus pirates. Yeah. The problem is, with that is you either do, you either have like real life communists, and there aren't a lot of famous communists that make for legitimate protagonists. They all descended into some pretty dark places pretty quickly. Or you make it just regular people who are communists, and that's not very interesting. It's either the concept of communism, or it's real communists, where it's kind of like, actually, Fidel Castro's regime was pretty terrible. Lenin, Stalin, not great people. So that's a tough thing. I'm actually vaguely surprised there's not been a Pirates vs. Ninja anime series. Like, that just seems to me like it would just print money. Get sort of the One Piece vibe versus the Naruto vibe. It's basically One Piece versus Naruto, right? Who wouldn't love that? All right, I'm gonna prep here for the review. And in fact, this is gonna be probably a short night tonight. I've got a bunch of different segments, but they all ended up short. So, short dramatic reading, short review. We will do Otaku no Cooking, but even that's going to be a short thing. It's basically just rolling up some things. But we'll have some fun, I hope. I don't really have a great debate topic. If anyone wants to suggest a great debate topic, I'll be happy to dive into it, but just nothing really came up for me, that I really was dying to talk about. Although I did want to do, I might do that. We'll do the review first, I think, though. So let me show you a bit of a panel clip while I finish this up. Be right back. One of the things you get as a result of this, if you've ever watched a fan sub, and right after the opening credit sequence, there's like a still frame from the opening credit sequence with some music playing and a usually female voice saying, "Grand sponsor no thank you de okurushimasu." That basically means thank you to these fine sponsors. And you see these logos. These logos are the logos of several members of the production committee that put in the lion's share of the money into the show, and in return they get this little ad in the show. Takara Tomy is a toy company, Dive 2 is a record label. And they both put a lot of money into the show, so they get this little ad inserted for them into the show. All right, so all these companies come together, kind of like Voltron, to make an anime series. So, what happens? They have to figure out where they're going to broadcast it. Obviously, this is part of the very early discussions there. So, in terms of television, there are a couple of obvious big choices. Terrestrial TV stations are their versions of CBS or ABC. They obviously are the most expensive. They have geographic limitations. So TV Tokyo, you can only see basically in Tokyo. There are some ways around that, but a lot of these channels are kind of region specific in Japan. Obviously they have the most restrictive content standards, and they don't have, they will not tell an anime studio, you can show this much of a breast, right? Because they want to keep it specific to the context. Like, I personally appreciate the fact that they're like, it depends, right? There are certain contexts in which showing nudity is more innocent than in other ways when it's obviously not. So they try to keep this, they try to make sure that they have an out for telling somebody basically, no, you crossed a line there. Some examples of terrestrial TV stations in Japan. TBS does a lot of anime. They're one of the major anime showing channels in Japan. The recent Gundam series are on there, Haruhi Suzumiya, Madoka Magical, Fullmetal Alchemist, and just tons and tons of anime are on TBS. TV Tokyo does a lot of the Shonen Jump titles, a lot of the big, hundreds of episodes series go on TV Tokyo, but they've also done weird stuff like Evangelion and Lane. Fuji TV is important because they don't show much anime, but they have this one hour block called Noitamina. And that is reserved for anime that does not follow traditional anime stereotypes. So they basically say, no shonen, no magical girl, just something different. Give us something that it isn't what you kind of would expect out of anime. So you get Eden of the East, Nodam Cantabile, and Wandering Sun. They've also shown things like Kamen Renmei and Cowboy Bebop before that block existed. So Fuji TV is really, they have been sort of pushing anime to do interesting things, to do unusual things, which is really cool. Nihon TV has a long-standing relationship with Studio Ghibli. So they air a lot of Studio Ghibli documentaries, and all the Studio Ghibli movies air on Nihon TV in rotation. And NHK is sort of like the PBS of Japan. They do a lot of public programming, and so they do show anime. It tends to be more historical adaptations, things along those lines. But they did Kagaku Sakura and Princess Tutu, but it's generally more cultural anime. And then TV Asahi did a lot of stuff back in the day, 70s and 80s, but they've kind of gotten out of that now. You also have satellite TV stations, so the equivalent of Sci-Fi Channel, basically. The two big ones are Wow Wow, which is always fun to say. And they have done a lot of anime as well as the uncut versions of shows. So Cowboy Bebop, they only showed 13 of those episodes on terrestrial television, and other episodes like, I think it was Jupiter Jazz, which has the shows with nudity or over-the-top violence, things like that. They showed, all 26 of those episodes on WoW. So it was kind of a way of showing things that way. And then ATX, which is basically Cinemax. They show this stuff with lots of boobs and nudity and things along those lines. Like those two shows. So you have those options. Obviously the content standards are much looser. You can get away with a lot more on those sorts of stations. Then you have UHF stations. As I understand it, there are still UHF stations broadcasting in Japan, and you can broadcast anime on them. I would love to know more, but that's all I found out. It's fascinating. But this is a way of getting your anime out there. All right, I think we're back as normal. So Matt, I hear you about anime focusing too much on tropes rather than creating genuine characters. The problem with that debate, as a debate topic, is that I don't know of a time when anime wasn't focused on tropes. The 2000s were just stuffed full of modern romances where the character, it was a bland protagonist, male protagonist, surrounded by an energetic girl and a quiet girl, and and a lowly, and all those it was much tropier, I think, in the 2000s than today. It was very tropey in the 70s. The 80s were pretty tropey as well. Macross is full of tropes. Original Macross particularly. The 90s somewhat less, but that's because anime was in a weird time. But I can't point to a time when it was better. Is the problem with that sort of topic. So I'm sorry to hear that, Liquidus. Best of luck in your recovery. I'll be praying for you. Best wishes on everything. Best of luck. I hope to see you again soon. Take care of yourself. But yeah, and again, I'm not trying to suggest that that you're not having that experience of seeing a lot of trope-filled anime. That is certainly true. I just think it's always been that way. There has been no golden time when everything was original. And part of the problem is, and I think we've talked about this before, it's any fandom has selective memory. People aren't talking about all the trope-filled anime that came out in 1985. They talk about the one non-trope-filled anime that came out in 1985. Whereas today, everyone sees the trope-filled anime that are coming out right now. So that's, one of those just weird things about humans. Hey Tonto, or Diego. Good to see you all. Let's do the review. Because I don't know, you hear that? I think it's review time.
These research studies explain how film experiences may help students learn increased amounts of new information, which is remembered longer, and which therefore may be applied efficiently to problem-solving situations as pupils progress from lower to higher grades. In the intermediate grades, the need for providing real experiences about things studied continues. Good teaching methods include the use of pictures, the chalkboard, models, and charts, usually before the learners turn to the pages of books for information. Some of the pupils can recall experiences of their own about pupas, larvae, and insects, and they can describe them to their classmates as they refer to charts like these. But for all the children in the classroom to really understand how things move and grow and develop from one stage to another, something else is needed. Something which can bring living experiences right into the classroom, experiences that are as lifelike as reality itself. What would happen if sound motion picture films were added as study materials in this classroom?
Okay, so this one requires some setup. I'm going to show you the trailer for this. This is not an anime. I came across this ridiculous fantasy film from the 90s, and I just had to talk about it. So I'm going to show you the trailer here, just so you can get a feel for how interesting this film is.
Why? I want a world where art and ideas are held in higher regard than brute force.
You ask the impossible.
Science and magic can create a machine so powerful that its threat alone will deter any aggression and ensure a lasting peace.
No man has the right to play at being God.
And if it is stolen, who will control such a weapon?
And now is the moment that I've been waiting for.
Every living thing is aging at a rate of roughly 1 year per week.
Assemble the armies!
My powers have been mocked for too long.
As you embark on the greatest quest the world has ever known, to stop this evil machine, to stop time itself. Godspeed!
May the elements bend and twist to my bidding.
Such is the stuff as legends are made of.
To the ends of time.
Yeah. All right. Let's do this. Some people cannot handle cheese, and for them, I am sorry. Because today, I'm reviewing To the Ends of Time, a sumptuous fantasy film made in 1996. Now, I say fantasy, but more specifically, I'll call it a fairy tale epic, meaning that it's not so much about grounded world building or killing hordes of bad guys, and more about a heroic journey. Much like Beauty and the Beast, the Disney animated film doesn't spend a lot of time establishing its setting of medieval France in detail, and instead focuses on the characters and story. To the Ends of Time creates a remarkable setting, but won't explain all of its implications, very deliberately, I think. Now, when I say a remarkable setting, just watch the first few minutes and you'll see what I mean. The movie opens with a fleet of airships, that is, galleons flying through the sky, which proceed to attack a castle that's bristling with fantastic Leonardo da Vinci-style defenses from arrow Gatling guns to focused beams of light. Holy smokes. And this gets to one of the problems that I think some people are going to have with this film. The airships are definitely models. Duh. This was released in 1996. There was no reasonable CGI for this stuff. Some people are going to lean back and point and laugh and say, those are clearly models. These people are missing the point. So what if you can tell they're models? It's like pointing out that Gollum is CGI. We know. So, you need to be able to sit back and not pick apart the special effects. In my opinion, they're quite effective for what they're trying to get across, and you got to kind of get into that mindset. Anyway, let me get off that little soapbox now and talk about the characters. As a fairy tale epic, the characters do fall into well-known tropes. The young hero, the sheltered princess, the wise but troubled king, the bearded mystic, you get it. But that's not a complaint. You can't innovate everywhere all at once, or the audience will get completely lost. The key lies in how those characters are treated in the story, and how well the actors bring life to those roles, whether you believe it. The story, to my surprise, was pretty tight. A lot of fantasy films meander quite a bit. With the characters, they'll wander into a swamp and fight a swamp monster, and then they'll get into the hills and fight a hill monster, and so forth. Not so this film. It clearly establishes the factions early in the film, and the plot progresses logically from the actions and reactions of the characters in those factions. It also has an interesting twist on the classic Save the World plot, which deals with time itself, but I won't spoil that for you. I'm trying to keep this spoiler-free. There are some brief diversions, and that gets into another important detail. The film's creator has stated that he wanted this to be a family-friendly film. Now, don't assume from that this is all rainbows and unicorns and people parachuting out of explosions. There are explosions and bloody dead bodies in this film. But in trying to appeal to a wide variety of ages, the movie adds a lot of comedic asides. Some of these work well, but sometimes they're just pratfalls or gags, particularly those having to do with this one funny chef sidekick. Fortunately, these are generally brief, and the movie continues on from there. Now let's get back to the characters and talk about the acting. This varies wildly. The king and his daughter are well played, both expressing a wide range of emotions. I was quite impressed there. The two kids, on the other hand, are, well, atrocious. They seem to be trying, but there's just absolutely no depth to their performances. Thankfully, they're not in the film for too much of its running time, so you can just kind of sit through that. Overall, if I said there's a 90s epic fantasy film featuring airship fleets and a quest involving the manipulation of time, and that excites and intrigues you, you will probably get a huge kick out of this flick. If not, you'll need to suspend your disbelief and push through some cringeworthy acting to enjoy a truly remarkable fantasy film. Alright, that was quick, easy. Nothing too hard there. Hey, Game Escape. Hey, Rocketman, or Rockman, sorry. So, yeah, Matt, I am very curious about your question about anticlimax versus deconstruction, but I'm not quite sure what you mean there. To me, by anticlimax, do you mean an ending that is not satisfying? Or do you mean like a smaller climax before a final climax? And what do you mean by like deconstruction? Like, where are you going there? But yeah, To the Ends of Time is really interesting. I mean, it was basically the creation of one guy who kind of came up with it all and kind of pushed it through. He has a little documentary online where he talks about it. And by the way, you can actually, that movie is on YouTube. You can go and watch it there. And it's in pretty good quality, which is pretty cool. Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm sad. And I know it did get a theater release, but I think it just, whatever reason, it just really didn't come together, which is sad. Apparently it got a pretty long run on Sci-Fi Channel in reruns, but I don't know of anyone who has ever heard of this movie. And I think, again, it's not great cinema. It's not going to be a classic that everyone remembers, but it's one of those. It's a pretty tightly plotted fantasy film that goes from point A to point B to point C very clearly, and especially given the fantasy genre does not have a great record for clear plotting. So okay. Let me go ahead. I'm going to do something a little different right now. I have a new thing I want to try to introduce, and we'll see how it goes. Do something unusual. Welcome to a new segment I'm trying out called... I'm completely forgetting what the segment is called. Okay, trying that again. Yeah. Get to see the sausage getting made, folks. Welcome to a new segment, show, video thing I'm trying out called The Complimentary, where I talk about a cool thing that I think is kind of impressive in its own way. Back in the mid-'80s, there was a toy company called Kenner, and they had a problem. They had the Star Wars toy license. That may not sound like a problem, but this was the 1980s, the mid-1980s, and all three Star Wars movies were done. Lucasfilm wasn't going to make any more Star Wars movies. And Kenner had been making a lot of its money, like paying a lot of its salaries through that Star Wars license. And they were going to face a really tough time if they couldn't keep that going. So they approached Lucasfilm and said, could we continue the Star Wars story ourselves? And Lucasfilm said, come in, we'll give you a meeting, and we'll see. So Kenner, a toy company, again, developed their own storyline for where Star Wars was going to go post Return of the Jedi, based on no knowledge from George Lucas. They went back and they watched the films, and they had their own story about the Clone Wars and about all sorts of characters, and they developed this whole thing. Get this. Their idea was, okay, you have this whole Clone Wars, right? What was that? And they said, what if the Clone Wars was fighting against this massive alien army of clones, like the Borg, suddenly swept into the Star Wars universe, not like the Borg specifically, but a force like the Borg. And they were just this unstoppable army of clones. And maybe that's where the Empire came from. Maybe all that military buildup that spawned the Empire was there to defeat the clone army. And so, but what if now that Palpatine's dead and the Empire is crumbling, now there's nothing to stop the Clone War army from coming back. They were defeated but not destroyed. So they imagined, what if you have this three-way war between the struggling but growing New Republic, the shattered remains of the Empire using scavenged Imperial technology, like imagine an AT-AT Walker with the back ripped off and a gun put on it, and all that kind of almost Mad Max-style scavenged technology by the remnants of the Empire, and then this weird alien race that's sweeping through the galaxy. That's pretty darn cool. And their idea was that they would come out with toys, and they were hoping that there could be like an animated series along those lines. But they really were planning primarily to just come out with toys that said, here's this stuff that's going on, you imagine. You tell your own stories. We're not going to try to create a definitive canon that all your stories are based off of. We might tell a story in that universe. We may kind of push things in a certain direction. But we want these to be units of play primarily, where the kids are telling their own story in this new Star Wars universe. And I think for more or less random people from Kenner to come up with that whole concept, and there was a lot more to it, by the way, and then pitch that to Lucasfilm, I think is pretty darn cool. Unfortunately, Lucasfilm said, we're just not really interested in pursuing Star Wars anymore at this point. Thanks, but no thanks. And decided not to move forward with it. But imagine, we could have had a very interesting, different timeline for Star Wars with its own universe, its own settings, its own vehicles. That's pretty cool. Okay. So it's a little segment I want to do every week of just a couple of minutes talking about something I find that's cool. I'll probably do some anime stuff, talk about like Project Eiko or Tenchi or something, and just say this is a neat little thing I've stumbled across or I know of that I think a lot of folks aren't aware of, and that I just want to kind of let people know about. I think it's kind of fun to share those cool little things that I find, and I think most of us find fun and interesting. Yeah, Kenner did good toys. Their toys were quality. They weren't incredibly high quality. They weren't like modern collectors quality because they were not meant to be collectors quality back then. But they built toys that kids could play with and that wouldn't fall apart in a week, which was the kind of the sine qua non of figures. I actually have. You know what? Let's do this. I'm gonna bring you my toy bin. Let's do a new show called Sorting Through Brent's Toys. Let's look at this. This will be a fun little thing to do for a few minutes here. So what do you guys think of this? Get these papers out of the way. I think what we'll do, that can go away because we're done with all of those segments. And then we can, I'm just trying to not knock things down. Things are going to shake and wobble for a minute while I move the camera. Orient the camera down. So, here are some toys that I will probably be selling off here sooner or later. 1 second while that stabilizes. What's going on there? Ah, there we go. Okay, sorry, the cable was caught. Okay. So, notice first the, what is this? Oh wow, I actually kept this is ridiculous. This is the pamphlet that comes with the Master Grade Hyakushiki. I don't know why I kept this. Oh well. G.I. Joe Zartan. From the re-release, so not particularly valuable. What do I have here though? Some watches. These are not really toys. These are all 80s toys, pretty much. What do we got here? We have got a transforming Big Mac. Who doesn't want a Big Mac that transforms into a, what can charitably be called a robot? Very, very charitably. Yet no. Let's see here. Heck, Chicken McNuggets. Right, that's definitely Chicken McNuggets, but wait. There's a transformer, and I mean, it has 3 points of articulation if you're really, really generous. Yeah. So we've got that. What else do we have here? You'll notice some names that you probably are familiar with based on some figures that are deep in here somewhere. Some of you may also recognize this, but we'll see. Some random Lego, classic Lego, old school Lego. What else do we have? So this is a Starcom toys. They're mechanized. So basically you can, let's see, we'll put this back in. So the idea is you have all of these pieces to it. Is that gonna fit? So it's supposed to, oh, there we go. I think we do it that way. It's supposed to snap down in place, but I think the snap is left. The idea is you press a button and your little laser thing pops up, and then that pops up a little sort of weapon cockpit there. So these were pretty cool. I don't know what that thing was for. That was probably the release mechanism. Oh, here, another. It's just an ordinary breakfast sandwich. But wait! This is even worse, by the way. I always call this sort of old guy Transformer, because this is as far up as he ever goes. So he is constantly hunched over at a 45-degree angle. That's his entire transformation, which is pretty bad. Let's see here, what else? I've got some knockoff Transformers. Actually, they're not knockoff Transformers, technically. Some of these things were from an actual line that was licensed and brought over here to America, but was just one of these, you know, it was just like Transformers or GoBots. They just didn't have a cartoon series, didn't have comic books. They were just, you know, toys licensed and rebranded over here in America. So this guy, I keep forgetting how he moves. He has no head anymore. Oh yeah, legs come down. And the Insecticon rage. And then arms come out like that. We got him. What else do we have here? Another sort of Insecticon type thing, sort of a beetle. I think this might actually be an Insecticon. This might actually be a Transformer. Yeah, I think it is. Which is actually pretty cool. You have your insect version. Never really liked the insect mode Transformers, but whatever. And then this cycles around, and then those come out, so you get your robot mode there. That comes back down, and there is actually this little hatch. I don't remember what the hatch was for, but he has a hatch. Why not? Let's see here. So this is interesting. This is, yeah, the Bytron's Bat-L, which is this robot that then transforms in this very weird way. So you got to flip this over, flip this that way, and then he kind of does this, I think, and does that, and then these spin around, and he turns into this weird sort of ship. And I always thought that was an interesting toy, interesting transformation, but what WTF? This is actually a Yoshiyuki Tomino anime series mecha. It is basically turns into this. This is basically a like a battleship. It's huge. This is a very large mecha in the anime, which is why it has, it doesn't transform to anything recognizable, because it's basically a mobile weapons platform. It's this giant thing. Actually, I think it does that in its form. So really bizarre. What is the name of that series? It was from 82 or 83, Tomino series. Let me see what I can find on that real quick. Yoshiyuki Tomino anime. Maybe that'll do it. What's the name of that? I will try his ANN list. Wasn't Dunbean, not brain powered. Not that one, not Voltes. Gosh, I keep forgetting how many anime he was involved in. Was it Vifom? I don't think it was Vifom. No. And of course, he's original creator on every Gundam ever. Was it L Game? Was it Heavy Metal L Game? No, I don't think so. What was the name of that? Let's scroll past all the M's. Daitarn 3? Was that it? No. I'll find it. It's annoying me. It's right there on the tip of my tongue. Zabungle! That's what it is, Zabungle. So this is Zabungle. A Zabungle toy just rebranded as a random transforming toy. Which is kind of weird. As Batel. And this guy also had spring-loaded rockets. So back when that was very controversial, you could actually, do I have any? I think I have a few in there. You could load them into here, and then these would fire them off. These little levers here. What else do we have? I got some random Transformers. Oh, there we go. Tenchi. Very dusty Tenchi. Similarly, a Ryoko from McFarlane Toys back in the day. Still in good shape, all things considered. What else do we have here? So, you have your Transformers. You've got a pinball machine. Actually, it should be like this, I think. pinball machine, right? But it transforms too. So that spins around here. That spins around here, and these arms pop out, I think. Yep, and you have these ridiculous little arms. Still in very good shape, actually. This one might go decently on eBay. And you might think, okay, yeah, that's kind of cute, but the big kind of impressive thing about this, we say impressive, but kind of unusual, is that this is a functional pinball machine. Like there's actually you can probably see it in there. There's a little ball in there, and you can actually, like those flippers work. You can actually pull this thing back to launch the. So that goes in, and move it over there. I can actually play pinball, kind of, sort of. Which again, I mean, at that scale, that's pretty darn impressive. Again, oh my gosh, Fries as Transformer. Yeah, that's definitely that's a robot you fear right there. That's one that'll, you know, that's just firing weapons and destroying things right and left, right? Just crazy. Yeah. Here's a weird one. You know what this is? Ever seen this before? Ever heard of this before? This is a rock lord. They are rocks that transform into robots. There we go. There's your rock transformer. Because who doesn't want a bunch of transformers whose alt modes are literally lumps of rock? Really weird idea. Didn't succeed, surprisingly enough. Imagine that. Kind of crazy. But let me show you guys what you got when you got a transformer. So let me see a few examples here. Most of these are kind of older transformers, not from kind of like the original G1 lines. They're from later on reissues of the G1 line. But this is a pretty good example. So here's I have no idea what the name of this guy is. But as you can see, it is actually a functional, I mean, it is basically a Hot Wheels car. Yeah, that all works. But then you flip it out, like that. I think, oh, that's right, you have to you can actually pop the hood on this, which is kind of cool. And actually, you know, that pops up. And then you pop out the arms, which are quite stiff. But they do come out. This is the amazing thing. I mean, these things are, you know, decades old, but they still come out pretty well. Yeah, and there's your transformer. So not too bad. Not a lot of articulation on there. Actually, almost none. That's pretty cool. And I mean, that's metal right there. That's die-cast metal. So this thing is going to last for quite a while. That's the great thing about these guys, is that they will last. In fact, this one even has. You want to get fancy here. Oh, that's right. And this is actually part of a larger toy. I forget what it is, but one of the combining toys. So you've got. You might notice this on the front. I actually put my finger on this, and it will eventually lighten up if it hasn't died already. I think it may be dead. But if you basically heat up, do you rub it? Or do you heat it? I think it's dead. But it basically shows you kind of a hologram there. You can see a little bit of the design, and maybe not. Okay. But yeah, those transformers are pretty good. I have a Voltron in here. I have several Voltrons, in fact. Ooh, these need to be shifted away. A complete Voltron. And this is actually a lamp Voltron. So you can put in some batteries here, some double A's, and he serves as a lamp. Otherwise, that's about it. There is. I think you can actually. You are supposed to. So those aren't going to come off. So I think you can. Yeah, I think he would. It's interesting. I can see where you should be able to like turn these guys around somehow and open them out. I don't know, but there's. Oh yeah. Okay, so these guys pop off. Oh yeah. So this technically transforms. So you can pop these guys off. Pop them off. And these pop. Oh, that's right. That's what you do. You have to like put them in a particular position. What is it? And then that. Yep. There we go. And that pops off. And then this comes down. And you get little legs. You can actually transform him. Back in the day, folks. This is the best you had. Yeah. So that comes down like this and comes out like this, and then you have your thing. Actually, you even have, look at this, there's even a little tail. Isn't that cool? But that was as close as you got to a robot lion, that shape, which is more, in my opinion, robot bear. That's a pretty darn bulky, it's a mess. But there's a flashlight in it, which is kind of nice. Hey, TNMP! So yes, that's all a thing. But I mean, this is the only thing that moves in these lines. It's just that. There's no, the legs don't come down or anything like that. So here's how much of a Voltron fan I am. I know exactly what goes where. I know the yellow line goes there, blue line goes here. I am a little uncertain just now. Is it red on the right? Well, no, it's red on the left. Okay. So there's Voltron in all his cheesy glory. Yay. Hey, Tandem. What else do we have? Another. Let's see if this hologram works on this helicopter dude. Another transformer. Ooh, I think I'm seeing some change there, some color change. Yeah, that's coming up a little bit. See what happens. Oh yeah, I've got a Veritech in here, or Valkyrie. Part Valkyrie. So yeah, you can kind of see this. Hey, Tandem. Yeah, it's starting to come out. Yes. Slightly lighter. And this guy transforms. I'm trying to remember how. It was this rescue transformer. It was all rescue-based things. That comes down. These come out. This flips somehow. Oh yeah. So that flips around like that. So you have the legs. And that comes out. And then I think that flips. Yeah, he's the arm. So his head becomes the thing there. And then the fist of the giant robot comes in like that. So it did function pretty well. But the robot modes are never particularly good, but they did do a very good job always on the actual vehicle modes. Like that's a reasonable helicopter. So let's do a Veritech. I think this is actually, well, no, maybe not. Let's see here. I mean, this may be a Robotech branded toy, but it's obviously a cute little super deformed Valkyrie. And then we just pop it like this. That. Move the arms down. What's neat about this one too is you can do Gerwalk mode. You got Gerwalk mode there, more or less. Yeah. Some of these are really stiff and some are really loose. Yeah, there's a more or less Gerwalk mode, and then you can fold those back. I guess you flip this back. That, yeah, the legs fold in there. Legs do that, and then you have your little chibi Valkyrie. It's a fun one. Or, that's cool. Let's see here. More Starcom, which were so these again those sort of interesting ones that had all the mechanisms inside. And the thing about the nice thing about Starcom is they were very magnet based. So you had. Come out a little bit more. This is actually being held on by a magnet that just comes on like that. So that was nice for the day. And then this had all these different elements. I think that, yep, that flips that out. It's sort of a hovercraft. And I think, whoops, oh yeah, that's how that worked. So you actually had a little lever on the back, so you could, you know, fly it off. Hours of fun. But again, you know, not a bad toy. So I think this popped in like this, and then you see that, and then did that pop out? No, it's popped out those. Ah, okay. That's weird. So the mechanism that drops this also pushes the cockpit out. Don't know why that is. But yeah, little magnets around there, so a little magnet on the base, so I figure it could pop in there. And the nice thing about the magnets is that, you know, when you had your toys flying around them, or flying around your room, your you know, they didn't fly out of your ship. You could kind of do cool maneuvers, and you wouldn't have you know, a figure popping out onto the rug. So yeah, Starcom was a pretty neat thing. A lot of articulation. You can see a lot of detail. You know, by 80 standards, in all of the and those are my stickers on there, by the way, which is why they're so sloppy. You get little like side grills and stuff. It's kind of neat. And this, does this open? I think it opens. One part of it opens. Come on. I think it's empty. Yeah, it's empty. But you could actually, in fact, is that? Wow, I think, let's give this a try. If I recall correctly, I can tell you all are fascinated because you're all, you know, completely quiet. I think if I do this, put this in here. Ooh, it folds in there. Yeah. Does that fit inside this? No, not quite. But it is designed to be, you know, sort of a compatible size. So the idea was this was some kind of standard cargo size in this universe. Pretty interesting. Then you have these. I have no idea what these are, but I remember being really having a lot of fun with them. They are sort of a combination Lego slash other construction, you know, a system, but you basically connected and disconnected various pieces of it. You could pop on and off all these different tank treads and things. These there's a tank tread there. There's one tank tread. I don't know if I have any others. There we go. But yeah, so you could kind of combine and recombine all these figures, and you had your cockpits and your characters. In fact, I think I have another one in here somewhere. Yeah, right here. So here's another idea of it, and even cooler, all the stuff in the back is glow in the dark. So this stuff will all glow in the dark. And I think that was amazingly cool, and it still is in its own way. All right, anything else of interest to an anime fan? No idea who that is. I think he's some kind of cartoon character from the 70s. I don't know. Yeah, I think he's from Sailor Moon or the G.I. Joe. I think he's a G.I. Joe character. Definitely a G.I. Joe character. So got him. And then, oh, here's the reason I brought all these out. So, look at that. Look at that. These are the old school Star Wars figurines. If you ever wonder what they look like. He had a lightsaber in his arm. It is now gone. But you had these. You have, so basically, head rotates, arms spin, legs move about that much. There are holes in the bottom to fit them on pegs, which you kind of needed. But as you can see, these joints are very floppy already. Han's pretty good. He holds reasonably well. Yeah, definitely classics. Are those the only I think those are the only Star Wars guys I have. I do have, look at this. So when you're, when you're desperate and you want a Voltron toy, sometimes all you can get is a rubber toy. This is an all rubber, it's almost like an eraser Voltron, just made up of chunks. It all does disassemble into their separate vehicles. This is the vehicle Voltron. And yeah, that's what you get, is just a, come on, focus, focus, there we are. And, okay. Yeah, that is it. You know, it does, I mean, yeah, they do technically spin, but there's not much you can do. And I mean, as soon as you start moving them around, they fall out of the little holes. But that's what you got. And indeed, in fairness, you see this little hole right there for the sword, so you can equip it with a sword. I don't think I have that anymore. But that is Vehicle Voltron. If you really, really need it, I'm sure it cost like 50 cents back in the day. Made by LJN Toys Limited, copyright WEP Limited. I'm not sure what that is. But yeah, all those kind of pieces are there, so to speak. Kind of crazy. There's Vehicle Voltron. Anything else in there of moment, of note to all of us? I think that will do it for the... oh, look! It's just a normal McDonald's shake, right? But, look! There's a robot inside. And again, that's the entire robot. Oh well. There's also another cool toy channel called Toy Galaxy. And they also do retrospectives and stuff on old toys and such. So, okay, put these back in here. Okay, so that's that. So, Matt, are you still there? I wanted to dive more into that topic you brought up, but I haven't. Oh, darn. Ryoko lost her saber. It broke off. Sad about that. Alright, let me get these back in here. These are little figurines that I bought and are very fragile. So I'm kind of trying to keep them safe. Over there. Is that it? Does this all fit in there? Yes, they do. Back up here. Ooh. That's slightly better. That going. Okay. Back in business. So that was Brent's toy box for the night. Let's remind ourselves, we've done the review, dramatic reading, the news. We did our little complimentary video. I think that was it. I keep forgetting to do the review intro every time. Yeah, I think all that's left for tonight is Otaku no Cooking. So unless you guys have anything you want me to talk about, we will jump into that. What do you guys think? What do you have any... You have anything you want to dive into, anime-wise? Anything you've been watching? Anything you want to talk about? Thanks. Glad to hear that was fun. I'll probably sell all of them on eBay. Like I never look at all that stuff. I never really dive into it. Nothing like throat coat to help the throat. The ending of Macross Plus is a downer. That is true, especially the movie. The movie is more a downer than the OVA. But it's not a. I wouldn't call it a depressing ending. You know, the day is saved, so to speak. It's just. You know, it's not one of those things where everybody, you know, the good guy ends up with his girl or vice versa, and you know, everybody's cheering and all that kind of stuff. It's not that kind of a story. It's about, you know, it's about adults and adults dealing with adult problems, and unfortunately, adult problems do not have simple, happy endings. Can I categorize the different periods in anime fandom? That's a very interesting question. I have to go with American fandom because I don't know enough about Japanese. Well, I mean, I can say a bit about both. So, I would say certainly there is a dividing line in Japanese fandom before and after Space Battleship Yamato, where before that there were scattered people, watching and enjoying anime, but Yamato and then also Harlock and Gundam really coalesced the fans who were interested in anime, and they started actually talking about it, forming clubs and so forth. And Yamato, from what I've read, was sort of the clarion call to all of those folks to really start talking about that. So that was really a big one. Then I would say the next big thing would be the rise of, I don't know, I mean, Comiket started fairly, I mean, Comiket's difficult because Comiket's been around for a long, long time, but its role has shifted over time. Originally it was just this small market for folks making their own original stories in comic form. But I would say, the rise of Comiket as a medium, and that might have been the mid to late 80s, was when doujinshi as a form of storytelling really rose to prominence, where anime staff would go to Comiket and look at the people working there and people producing stuff, and would hire people out of Comiket into the anime industry. So that seems like a late 80s, early 90s maybe kind of thing. And that was certainly a big shift from the early days, where it was a little harder to get into the industry. And then also just the rise of otaku as a defined group of adults. There were a market, right, where I would say, again, maybe mid-90s was when you saw the shift from otaku as this group of people that everyone knew were out there, but didn't really pay much attention to where people started making anime basically for them, for that market, with the rise of Nadia and Evangelion, and the strong fandoms of that amongst this hardcore adult audience. That certainly seems a big thing in America. Robotech was the big one. Robotech, from what I've read of American fans around at the time, they said, yeah, Robotech was the watershed moment where suddenly there was a market. There were people coming, kind of like Yamato back in the 70s for the Japanese. Now there were anime clubs. Now there were fanzines where there were not before Robotech. Then after that, the big thing was probably the mid-90s. And so Robotech was 83, I think, or 84. The next big thing was the mid-90s, and there was no real strong thing. It was basically the release of Akira and Ghost in the Shell in the early 90s, which then kind of built up this momentum over several years. And you got the release of Ninja Scroll and Demon City Shinjuku and other sort of more adult-oriented anime. And that kind of built up to a head in the mid to late 90s, where there were just now enough college-age and young adult fans to actually support a domestic U.S. anime industry of companies like ADV and Central Park Media and all those companies that were actually producing, licensing, bringing anime over to America. And then Pokemon. Pokemon was a watershed moment where before that, the average person on the street did not know what anime was, and after that, they did. And suddenly, it was part of culture, part of Western culture in a fundamental sense. And I don't mean that everyone was watching anime, obviously, but that the concept of anime was no longer this weird underground thing. And after that, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything really that's changed. I think Naruto was a significant shift, not massive, but Naruto certainly brought in this huge fan base of teenagers who loved it, and they kind of took over the cons. Kind of took over a lot of the clubs and so forth, and anime shifted to a younger audience. Where with Pokemon, you had lots of kids who watched Pokemon, but it took them a while to kind of grow up and get into anime. Some of them grew up and got into started with Pokemon and then got into Naruto in their teen years. But it seems that Naruto was kind of this again a moment of sort of coalescing of those younger fans in this case to start starting their own to start their own clubs and really getting to take over those conventions. Yeah, Attack on Titan might be. I have not been able to identify what has changed as a result of Attack on Titan. It certainly seems to be a big thing, and we will probably be able to look back and say, oh yes, that was it changed for these reasons. But I just can't identify yet how exactly what that thread is yet. So we'll need a few years to kind of identify and figure that out. Let's see here. Yeah, I may say one or two toys. I don't know. I'll put it this way. Until I thought about actually minimalism, I've been pursuing minimalism for months now, and I thought about all these toys, and I realized I haven't pulled any of these toys out in like decades. So, where was the stream yesterday? I do not stream on Thursdays. I never stream on Thursdays. Sorry. I actually go to see my parents on Thursdays. So I literally, I guess I could stream on Thursdays. I usually get back around 9 or 10, but I've been out all day. Let's see here. Why Japanese have this fetish for psychopaths that only reveal themselves one last minute and don't care if they die? That's a good question. Yeah, I also don't stream on Mondays because Mondays I have D&D every other week, and I'm actually trying to turn that into 1 week D&D, alternate weeks like some other RPG. I'm actually working on a Star Wars game for next week using a custom system. I have one player who has legitimate security concerns about being broadcast publicly on the internet. Needs privacy for certain things, so I can't live stream that, unfortunately. Let's see here. That's a really interesting question, Daniel. The psychopaths only reveal themselves. Part of that is because Japanese science fiction got its start in detective stories, whereas American science fiction got its start in basically horror, or at least kind of things man was not meant to know with Frankenstein and those sorts of stories, as well as some science stories as well. Japanese science fiction grew out of weird detective stories that were kind of fever dreams, or where the character was actually a clone or something along those lines. So they tended to be really weird concepts, and that got as a result this kind of fetish, if you will, for strange mystery, for confusing, for odd stories. And so when you want a mystery, when you want something that folks can't figure out, one easy way to do that is to have a mysterious character, somebody who is just unknowable, that is pulling all the strings and such. It's honestly a little cheap to have a weird psychopathic villain that reveals everything and then throws himself off the balcony and dies or whatever. It's kind of Shakespearean, granted. That kind of trope does go back a ways, but it's certainly elevated in anime. I would say also there is Japan does struggle with a large suicide problem. So they are exposed to people who do commit suicide kind of out of nowhere, more than we are, sadly, especially young people. So I think that is also kind of a factor in it. What else? But yeah, I hate to bash, but I do think it's one of those cheap writing exercises where if I can't think up a good villain, then I'll just make an inscrutable one. See, I'll disagree with you about Macross Plus. You are correct that trope is there in Sharon Apple, but I think it's different because Sharon Apple isn't a character. She is a facet of a character's personality put in this strange situation. So she's kind of like Hal in 2001, where Hal is operating in a completely rational and logical way once you know the backstory of Hal. And the thing about Sharon Apple is that she was essentially misprogrammed. She was given these things which could cause her to act in this way, and that has these effects on her personality. So the fact that she is doing strange things and then kind of wants to die, or is okay with dying, is a reflection on Jung and Jung's personality. Oh, the producer. You're right. You're absolutely right. Thank you. Yeah, you're. I had not thought about that. Yep. The producer. That's totally true. What is a major through line of trope that all shows are influenced by today? It's hard because we're gonna delve into the question of what is a trope, right? Is the hero's journey a trope? Is a childhood friend a trope? I don't know. Tour the room and the puppet stand. So the puppet stand is still incomplete, sadly. I went to drill it, and the drill I borrowed from my dad was too large. I mismeasured, so I'm going to have to go out tomorrow and buy the right drill to actually drill into it. So it's still just the stand you saw on Wednesday, sadly. Probably tomorrow I'll go out and take care of that. It's been working all week. So that is a plan there. But otherwise, the room's unchanged. It's still the room. You can see the personal electronics workbench down there. And other things. The Gundam Perfect. Actually, tomorrow night, I'm planning to start on the red frame. The perfect grade red frame. That'll be fun. And all the sci-fi books and fantasy books and all that stuff. So let's see here. What else? See, now my brain is running through that idea of a major trope that all shows are influenced. I don't think there's one thing that all shows are influenced by. Right? Lane is not a harem series. In any way, shape, or form. So, neither is Bebop, actually. So it's kind of, I don't know if I can point to one thing. I mean, you're certainly right that harem has become ubiquitous. Well, not ubiquitous, but very, very common. And that is a thing that has kind of gone everywhere. What else? I would say, actually, that Rumiko Takahashi with Urusei Yatsura and Maison Ikkoku introduced the idea of romance into anime. This idea that you can have an ongoing romantic plot line that never resolves. That is more or less an innovation of her. Not that it was never done before her, but that she kind of popularized it. And that seems to be a thing that everyone does. That there's always some ongoing romance that is just kind of there. And never really progresses very far. It might progress a bit, over the course of the entire show. They may grow closer over the course of the show, but it never goes very far. And before that, before the late 70s, you really didn't have romance stories in anime. You might have a little bit of googly eyes, right, between people, but she really seemed to knock that one out of the park. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Akira certainly blew the door open for dark adult stuff. Actually, so now I'll have to kind of lower our expectations and talk about what created big trends in anime. So not necessarily that everyone followed this, but that suddenly this was a thing. I gotta say it. I think Legend of the Overfiend blew the door open for dark adult hentai. The idea that you could tell these really gory, and also just fundamentally dark in plot and concept stuff seemed to be a thing with Legend of the Overfiend. And again, I think Yamato really spawned the epic space story. The idea of a giant a plot going on episode by episode, moving through space and doing a huge story that way. Certainly Yamato pioneered that. In Akira for sort of adult-oriented anime, not in the sense of hentai, but in the sense of a story just aimed at an audience over 20, with all those expectations and interests. And then probably Ghost in the Shell was the big proof of the American anime market. The first Ghost in the Shell movie, where that was partially financed by an American company, and then it just sold like gangbusters in America, and proved that an anime that, again, wasn't a weekday afternoon adventure cartoon. It wasn't Macross or something that is easy to market to the general market. Something like Ghost in the Shell could sell to that hardcore adult audience in America. That seemed to be the big thing there, and that certainly opened the doors to all those darker, more serious anime that's sold over here in America ever since. But yeah, I'm with you, Daniel. The odd psychopath, I think, is a cheap trick for anime, for any story. But yeah, that does seem to be a thing. The other thing about that too, actually, is that Japanese storytellers and Japanese audiences, and I would say Asian audiences in general, are more comfortable with ambiguity and ambiguous elements in their stories. So while one of our criteria for a good story is that things are explained to at least some degree, and they're okay with less explanation for how all that goes. Do I recommend Tiger Mask? That's a tough thing. I've seen the new Tiger Mask episode, I think 1 and 2, and I've seen like clips of the old Tiger Mask. I think Tiger Mask is a great example of an anime where if you're not sure, just sit down and watch the first episode, and that will tell you exactly what you're going to get in terms of tone, quality, all that stuff. I found it to be great fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I find cheesy 70s anime to be a lot of fun to watch and ridiculous. I love cheese. In both in the food sense and in the media sense. I love Mystery Science Theater. I have watched movies that were on Mystery Science Theater in the raw and enjoyed them. So yeah, I like that stuff. I like cheesy over the top stuff, and Tiger Mask is very cheesy and over the top. But so if you can get to that mindset, I think it is absolutely that from what I've seen. And at least now, here's one of the problems is that I haven't seen far deep into the show, and one of the problems that cheesy 70s shows often have is that they'll be really fun and interesting early on, and then they'll just start grinding, and it's just the action is very bland and the characters are very bland, and it just doesn't really go anywhere. So that might happen. I don't know. Kojima was talking wonders about it on Twitter. Yeah, I mean, that's probably kind of like folks today talking wonders about Thomas the Tank Engine, right? Where, yes, that is a fine show, but it's not Citizen Kane. Yeah, no, absolutely, spin to win. That Asian stories are not told the way Western stories are. There are Asian directors who tell Western-style stories, but if you go back and you watch a lot of Asian, you go back and watch some Hong Kong cinema, and it is not necessarily going to be resolved in a way that you're happy with. Bollywood, often those do get surprisingly happy endings, I will admit. They tend to be kind of tied up in a simple bow. But it's those will just have different characters, different structures of how characters come together and what's expected out of them. But yeah, it's not the same culture, so the culture doesn't work the same way, which we all know. But a lot of folks are like, why isn't it like a Hollywood movie? Duh. It's why Kurosawa is so interesting, because Kurosawa kind of bridged that gap between Hollywood and Asian cinema, where he kind of took and apologies if this sounds kind of simplistic, but he kind of took Hollywood techniques and then applied Asian or Japanese pacing to them, if you will, where his films are often very slow and linger on things. And again, it's not that I'm not trying to be stereotypical. I'm not trying to be, racist or anything here. Just these are well-known, established elements of Asian storytelling and Asian art. Is it tends to be more focused on the moment, focused on the now, focused on the present, and that's what he did in his films. So the advantage is that somebody from California in the 1980s can watch a Kurosawa film and it's not so Japanese, so to speak, that it's incomprehensible, but it's Japanese enough to be different and interesting and remarkable. And that was one of the advantages of Kurosawa. His films are, and it's not to say that Kurosawa wasn't Asian or that he was whatever. Just his style happened to be closer to a traditional Western way of doing things. But that's one of the reasons why he kind of blew up in the West, is because he happens to be more approachable than a lot of Asian directors for lots of different reasons. I've come across lots of Asian stories I just can't get into, where I watch it, I'm like, something needs to happen. Like, please, can somebody actually? That's a lovely field, but do we have to put the camera on it for 30 seconds? I get it. It's a field, Not everything works the way we want it to. But that is funny that Kojima is talking the praises of Tiger Mask. I would say similar things about Cutie Honey, where I was very impressed with how fast-paced Cutie Honey is. The original Cutie Honey series, there's constant action. They keep up the pace throughout the entire episode when they're not doing really goofy, dumb comedy. But I was like, yes, please, more of this. I think more modern anime should be, especially action anime, should be more like that, where it's not, it's not an action scene, it's not an action sequence that takes up, 5 minutes or 4 minutes of your 24-minute episode. 22 minutes of the 24 minutes is action. That was really nice. Some of it is a little reused, but what can you do? All right, let us move on to Otaku no Cooking. I think it is time for some food. Thank you all. Those are good questions. Hey, Blue Dragon. Good to see you back. So I'm just going to transfer over to the kitchen. It's just going to be a few minutes here. I think I'm actually ready to go, but I think what I'll do, I have I'll show you the beginning of my review of, I think this is Read or Die. On there. Have I shown that recently? I'm not sure. But I'll show you a few minutes of this Read or Die review, then we'll move over to the kitchen and continue live over there. So give me a few minutes, and I will see you over in the kitchen. Welcome back to Otaku no Video. As always, thank you very much for joining me, where today I am reviewing Read or Die, the OVA. ROD, as it's otherwise known, has had two different anime adaptations, ROD the OVA and ROD the TV series. What's fun about Read or Die is a couple of different things. Every anime, manga, version of it is its own story. So you're not, if you go back and read the manga, you'll get a different story than if you watch the anime. But they're all part of the same universe, and they all tie together, which is really fun. And you'll see references to different characters, and some characters will grow up and will change over the course of, from one series to the next, which is fun to watch. ROD the OVA focuses on Yomiko Reedman, who is a young woman and a special operative who basically has complete control over paper. So she can take a piece of paper and make it steel sharp and turn it into a throwing weapon, or make it a shield for herself. So it's now something that will block a bullet. And she can use paper in this strong way. And she goes on various adventures and various missions for the British Library with other people with other superpowers. Not necessarily paper related, but it's all sort of James Bond style, secret agents trying to save the world. But with this really fun and interesting and unique theme around reading and books. Yomiko is a bibliophile of the First Order. and she just loves books. And so the story is book related, besides just being about somebody who, you know, has this amazing control over paper and reads all the time and has this ridiculously huge book collection. And the story is save the world, and I don't need to get into any spoiler territory to explain. It's, again, the James Bond kind of save the world thing, and somewhat over the top. The villains often have these almost magical, you know, ridiculous abilities, which is part of what makes the anime fun, is that it is willing to just throw crazy powers at you and see how the characters respond to that. Being an OVA, this has a pretty high animation budget. It came out at a time when animation budgets were fluctuating quite a bit. So there are some quieter moments of animation in this, but the action sequences have a lot of wonderful kinetic energy to them, and they move around quite a bit. It's a you know, this definitely feels and looks like an action anime. You will not be disappointed. If you're coming in here looking for action, it's definitely there. That said, the animation does have this interesting, distinctive style where it's a little more kinetic, it's a little more active. The characters move in a... Okay, we are back live. Hello, everyone. There we go. Hello, everyone. It is time, once again, for Otaku no Cooking, where we're going to make Naruto rolls, which I believe is a nod to a certain anime and manga ninja, and it's probably not the actual Japanese term for it, but it's basically a simple sort of appetizer, simple meal roll. It's going to be very simple and quick, I think, and we're just going to go ahead and make it. So these are going to be basically a combination of ham, cheese, and nori, or seaweed, seaweed sheets, all rolled together. They say it doesn't matter what order they're in, so that's good. You just grab some. Let me grab a sheet here. Oh, actually, well, I cut some off. Something else. Let me see what I've got. Let me grab a bigger sheet here. Doesn't want to come out. That's going to be a better size for the ham. I think, maybe. We'll find out. You say just layer them together. I've never tried this before food-wise. Is that going to be... Yeah, I need that. So we're just going to layer together ham. Rub some of that ham up. And cheese. Got some cheddar cheese here. Sliced thin, in this case. You don't have to have thin sliced cheese, which is what I happen to have on my hand. And I'm going to go a little bit over here. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut this. Can you cut nori with a knife? Kind of. Yeah. Yeah, it comes. I need it to be a little firmer with the knife. Okay, and they say basically just roll it. Not sure if I should roll it. Roll the stack and push it. So we're going to do it this way. I'll roll the stack. It seems to me there's going to be one way that's better than another. I'm not sure. Okay, so we rolled that. It doesn't seem very thick. No, I'm going to do it the other way. Just got a little bit of... Okay, so I'm going to cut this. Kind of cuts through. Not very well. Okay. I'm going to roll this way instead. Yep, got some ifuse. It's rolling. Okay. That's all rolled together, and they say to use toothpick to hold in place. There we go. And then cut off the ends to make it even, and then we're going to slice it into smaller pieces. So we're going to do this, and this, so even, and then we'll do a roll here. the roll here. So what's interesting about this is that the nori is doing a pretty good job of holding these rolls together. Now, obviously, the cheese is cracked. But as you can see, that's not bad. It's actually just held together. Normally, you just put them out kind of like this. Here's the one I pierced. And if I do that, that holds together okay. Now the big question. Yeah. The nori is nori. You have to get used to the taste of that, which is a little bitter. But not bad. Let's do another one. Some more. Get the pieces off there. Okay. Check for any comments. Oh, 1 second. Got some computer issues there. There we go. Okay, good. So again, let's just take some. Let's change things around a little bit. Let's try some cheese. Go in this way. Actually, you know what? How big? How much ham? I might do a big one. Are these nori sheets? Oh yeah, okay, that's what I'm missing. Got it. So the reason I'm having issues with the size there is because you're supposed to use the entire sheet of nori. So let me grab some ham. Okay, yeah, this is making a lot more sense. You don't want to cut the nori down to size. You want to use all your ingredients and fill that sheet of nori. I may have to trim that down a bit. Yeah, I'm going to cut off a small strip of the ham. Just so it will fit. Waste not, want not, want not. Okay, and goes there. Leave that cheese back in place. This time we have the, oh man, that cheese wants to go with the other ham. There we are. So we have the ham, cheese, nori. And it shouldn't matter which way I roll. I think I will roll this way, so we have a bit more flexibility with that gap there. That's gonna, yep. Okay. There we go. Toothpick. All right. There's our nori. There's our Naruto roll, so to speak. I'm going to cut off the ends. Now we're going to do some firm cuts as firm as we can. Those bits. I'm not quite sure what you do with those bits on the end. Kind of an awkward size. Okay. So they are unrolling a little bit, but I think you can more or less squash these back in place. So there are your Naruto rolls. Firm. Ready for anyone happen to be coming by. Same idea here. It's a nice combination. You get the saltiness of the ham, the slight sweetness of the ham, along with the sharpness of the cheddar. It adds a creaminess to it as well, along with that unique nori taste. And I don't mean unique in a negative sense. It's just it's It has almost umami to it. But it's not heavy. It's a very light, easy thing to eat. And the nice thing about this is it should last in the fridge pretty well. So I think we can refrigerate this stuff and use it another time. Take it to work perhaps tomorrow or have it as a lunch. So those are Naruto rolls. Next week we'll progress off to something quite a bit more complicated, but there we are. Thank you all for joining me. All right, that is Otaku no Cooking for tonight. So let me go ahead and just throw that stuff in a container. But yeah, that's darn easy. Just nori sheets, ham and cheese. And of course you can use turkey, you can use whatever you want. There. What? No, that's good. I'm just throwing that in a thing. Yeah, it's not spam. I am wondering, though, how one would seal that together better. You could obviously put toothpicks in every one. That's a little complicated. You couldn't really use... Well, what you might be able to do is use a little less ham and cheese. So there's a lip of the nori, and then wet the nori. And then when it comes back around, fold that wet nori onto the nori on the side of the roll, and that should stick. That might be the way of doing that, is you have a little extra there. In fact, let's just real quick. I'm just going to, for fun here, not part of the show, I'm going to take that extra strip of nori. I'm going to put some ham on there. Let's just experiment for a minute. And add some cheddar, or thin cheddar. So I've got, So I've got this overlap here, you can see. And I'm going to try, there's actually an overlap here as well, but I'm going to do this. Oh, see, that's, it's moving the cheese of what it is now. Do it. There's sort of a air bubble as I do that. Okay, I have that nori here. So I think so I've got this flap. I'm going to try just wetting down that flap and then holding it onto the underside. Just hold that. Look at that. What do you know? So that might go onto the food. Let me just see if I can. You might want to do this before you try to seal it up. But can you? It doesn't want to. It doesn't hold together very well when you start cutting it. Look at that. That is much better. That is more like what you'd expect. I mean, there's a few little problems with cutting, but that's pretty good. That's what you do. Let me try re-wetting that. Now I'm going to use my saliva because I'm the only one that's going to eat this. All right. Does that help? Yeah, that helps. Cool. So we've learned something. Just wet down your nori, and that's not a euphemism. Use that to seal it down. Cool. All right. There's our Gunbuster. Excellent. Yeah, that's a short watch. That's just, a couple hours. I am hoping to start Nadia this week, as I've been saying for weeks. But I just have not been able to get to Nadia yet. So hopefully, I'll find a way. A little intimidated by the length. I mean, it's going to be a lot of episodes. Not huge, but still. This up. All right. Any last questions for the night before I head out? And that was 2 hours. Not too bad. eat up the rest of these leftovers. Reading on the review, cool. All right. All right. Well, I watched Blue Over the Wall, hopefully, someday. I mean, I want to. It looks fun. How popular was Gantz in its heyday? Pretty popular. When that came out, it was controversial. Folks talked about it a lot, both in Japan and America. Made a big splash. And there was a certain group of folks who were, convinced that Gantz was, the next Evangelion, and was incredibly deep and thoughtful and, mind-blowing. But that passed. Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely the talk of the day when it came out over here. All right. Yep, that'll do it. Thank you all very much. You guys have a nice weekend as well. And we'll see you guys on the flip side. So I should be doing Kit Bash tomorrow night. And then more video games. Oh, I should mention. So this Sunday, I'm going to be starting a new video game stream. Kind of. I mean, it'll still be the same format. But I have a new style and approach. Meaning, it's not going to be the same video games. This Sunday I'll be beginning No Guns, No Swords, which is a weekly video game stream where I play games that do not involve guns or swords as the primary mechanic, or the primary thing you do, firing a gun or wielding a sword in the game. So I've got some plans for that, and we'll see where it goes, but it's going to be fun. Also, I should point out, no sports, because folks will, point out that loophole, and also no fighting games. And that's just because I don't find fighting games particularly interesting. So no Street Fighter, Tekken kind of stuff. No guns, no swords, no sports, no fighting. Should be interesting. So hope you guys will enjoy that this Sunday if nothing goes wrong. And I will see you guys there. I might have to start late on Sunday with Mother's Day. I'm not sure how long it's going to last for me, that particular thing. But I should be home for that. So anyway, y'all, see ya.